Tonight we begin with the brilliance of the Mongol Empire built by Genghis Khan, the man who rose from a kidnapped orphan with trust issues to the leader of the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just woken up somewhere near the Onon River. You're wrapped in wool that smells like a damp yak. The sun hasn't risen, and neither has your sense of direction. There's frost on your boots, a thin layer of ice in your nose, and the sound of something snorting far too close to your head. It's your horse. Of course it is. He's your bedmate, your ride, your heating system, and occasionally your lunch. Personal space is not a concept here. He breathes heavily on you and steps on your coat while you try to stand. He does not apologize. Mongol horses never apologize. Your camp is already in motion. No one speaks. They just mount up and ride off like smoke. A boy with a bow the length of his body gallops past you, yawning. He looks about 10. His saddle is older than he is. He's been riding longer than you've been conscious. You tighten your sash, pack your gear, and climb onto your horse. There's no stirrup ceremony, no deep breath of gratitude, no breakfast. You chew dried meat while riding. If your jaw isn't strong, it will be by tomorrow. Assuming there is a tomorrow, the wind cuts sideways. It's not wind for decoration. It's the kind that flays the unprepared. You're riding into it at full gallop. Your face goes numb by the third ridge. No one notices. No one asks if you're okay. This is the steppe. You are either riding or you are part of the landscape. By midday, you've switched horses twice. Not because you're tired. The horse is. You're expected to be harder than your animal. If the horse is struggling, you carry more. This is considered balance. You urinate from horseback. You eat from horseback. You fight from horseback. If you fall off, you will be trampled. If you stop moving, you will be left. If you complain, no one will listen. They'll just assume the wolves got you early. You ride because everyone rides. Because there are no roads, no destinations, only speed and survival. And because in the Mongol Empire, walking is for prisoners. And you are not a prisoner yet. The landscape stretches endlessly in all directions, a canvas of brown grass and grey sky. There are no landmarks here except the occasional cluster of white felt tents called jez, appearing and disappearing like mirages. The earth beneath your horse's hooves is hard as iron, baked by summer sun and frozen by winter wind. This is home to the greatest empire the world has ever known, and it looks like absolutely nothing at all. You've survived the ride. You're not dead. That's good. But now you're hungry, which is a shame because breakfast here isn't a meal, it's a dare. Someone hands you a leather sack. It sloshes. That's your morning beverage. Fermented mare's milk. It's white, sour, slightly fizzy, and smells like what a saddle feels like after 3 weeks of riding through war zones. You drink it anyway, not because you want to, because that's what there is. It's called Iraq. It's technically alcoholic, but not the fun kind of alcohol. The kind that reminds you bacteria are real and they live in your throat. Now, Mongol children drink this. So do warriors. So do grandmothers. If it burns going down, that's how you know it's working. Food might be a hunk of dried mutton. Maybe it's grey, shriveled, and so tough you could use it to resole your boots. You chew it for 20 minutes. It doesn't get smaller, it just becomes wetter. There's also some arul, a rock-hard, sun-dried dairy lump that could double as a projectile weapon. It tastes like sour dust, feels like gravel, and makes your teeth question their purpose. You consider crying, but your tears freeze before they fall. You sit on the ground because there are no tables, no chairs, no napkins, just wind, wool, and the distinct scent of someone boiling something with hooves in it. There are no forks, no spoons, just your hands and the silent judgment of the old man across from you who's already finished his meal, tied a new knot in his saddle rope, and is now sharpening a blade with the kind of intensity usually reserved for religious experiences. You eat what's given. You don't ask what it is. That's a good way to stop being given food. There's no chatting. Mongols don't waste time with pleasantries before battle or after or during meals. They eat like they ride, fast, quiet, and prepared to move at any moment. You try to match their pace. You fail. The mutton fights back. You're not full. You're not satisfied. But you're slightly less starving. And in the Mongol Empire, that's a win. The sun climbs higher now, painting the endless grass in shades of gold and brown. Somewhere in the distance, smoke rises from another camp, another group of riders preparing for another day of conquest or survival or both. The air tastes of dust and possibility, of empire and emptiness, of everything and nothing at all. It's mid-morning now. The horses are sweating. So are you. And you may be wondering, when do you wash? You don't. In the Mongol Empire, clean is not about soap or baths. It's about not dying from infection. And even that's negotiable. You smell like leather, horse, meat smoke, and the faint sourness of whatever your boots are made from. Everyone else does too. No one comments. If you show up smelling like flowers, you're either a spy or cursed. Possibly both. Water is for drinking, not bathing. You want to scrub yourself clean with river water. That's drinking water. You want to die of dysentery with soft skin. Go ahead. Otherwise, wipe your face with your sleeve and move on. There is no soap. There is animal fat. There is ash. There is sand. If you want to exfoliate, rub your face with a handful of dust and pretend it's a spa. Your hands are filthy. Your nails are weapons. Your hair hasn't seen water in months, but it's tied neatly under your cap because appearance still matters, just not the clean kind, the greasy kind. That's respected. You don't remove lice. You manage them. You name them. You flick them into the fire during evening conversation. If they bite too much, you smear yourself with animal fat and dare them to keep going. Clothing is wool. It's stiff. It's been worn for 3 winters and still has blood on it from a goat you vaguely remember arguing with. You don't change it. You layer it. Add more in winter. Peel it off in summer. Maybe underwear doesn't exist. Neither does shame. And your teeth, they are your own problem. No brushes, no rinses. You chew bones. You drink irag. You hope the acidity of your breakfast slowly dissolves whatever stuck between your molars. You keep a knife handy, not for enemies, but for when that one tooth decides it's done being in your head. So no, you don't get a bath. You get wind. You get horse sweat. You get an overwhelming bouquet of unwashed humanity. But look on the bright side. No one else can smell you over themselves. Now that you've unlearned everything you knew about hygiene, it's time to ride into your first skirmish. You ride all morning and into the afternoon. You are not told where you're going. You are simply going. And then you see them, a cluster of moving dots on the horizon. Riders like you, but not like you, because they're not here to share fermented milk and stories. They're here to die or make you die. It's flexible. You don't panic. No one panics. Everyone just reaches for their bow. Mongol bows are short, curved, deadly, and somehow heavier than they look. They're made from layers of horn, sinew, and raw intent. They don't forgive mistakes. They don't miss twice. You notch your arrow. Your horse keeps moving. You don't slow down. That would be embarrassing. You twist at the waist, lean into the wind, and loose. It flies. So does theirs. Welcome to Mongol warfare. No glorious sword fights, no chivalrous duels, just arrows. Constant, intelligent, unromantic arrows fired from impossible distances while galloping. You've barely blinked, and 3 of your enemies are already on the ground. 2 more are riding in the wrong direction, possibly reconsidering their entire lifestyle. The trick is movement. Always moving. The enemy tries to close in. You retreat, not in fear, but on purpose. The famous feigned retreat. Let them think you're running. Let them chase. Then turn around and shoot them in the face while they're catching their breath. You're part of a dance now. Fast, precise, brutal. There's no shouting, no battle cries, just the snap of bowstrings and the dull thud of impact. You hear a scream. It's short. You don't look back. Your arrows aren't just sharp. They're poisoned. It's not personal. It's practical. Wound one enemy and let his comrades waste time dragging him away. Wound 2 and you've stalled their entire flank. Efficiency is more important than honor. You've now fired maybe 50 arrows. You've lost count. That's fine. There's a bag of 70 more hanging from your saddle. You shoot until your fingers blister. Then shoot anyway, because if you stop, you won't have fingers. The rhythm becomes automatic. Draw, aim, loose, reach for another. Your horse knows the pattern too, weaving between enemies like water through rocks. By sunset, the battle is done. You don't know how many you killed. No one does. No one's counting. Only one thing matters. You're still riding. You don't celebrate. You wipe your blade. You eat. You sleep. And tomorrow you ride again. The taste of victory is dry meat and mare's milk, same as any other day. The battlefield behind you is quiet now. Carrion birds circle overhead, patient as death itself. The grass will grow greener here next spring, fed by what remains. This is the way of the steppe. Life feeds on death, victory on defeat, empire on the bones of those who stood in its way. You ride on, already forgetting the faces of the fallen, already preparing for the next horizon. The battle's over. The sun dips behind the hills. No singing, no parades, just a crackling fire and the subtle sound of something being dismembered nearby. Dinner. You're expected to eat what you kill. If you didn't kill anything today, don't worry. Someone did. You just have to help prepare it. That means skinning, slicing, searing, or occasionally stabbing the goat again because it's somehow still twitching. The meat is tough. Of course it is. It's from an animal that spent its entire life walking uphill in a snowstorm. You roast it on an iron spit that's been in the family longer than most family members. There are no spices, no salt, no ceremony. If it bleeds less than you, it's ready. You sit in a circle, chewing quietly. Everyone stares into the fire like it owes them money. A warrior beside you gnaws a rib clean, licks the bone, then throws it behind him like it might grow into another goat. The fat is the best part. It's greasy, rich, and absolutely essential to staying alive. Mongols prize fat above all, not for flavor, but because it sticks to your ribs and keeps your soul from freezing at night. You don't question it. You bite into it like it wronged your ancestors. There's no bread, no vegetables, just meat and dairy and something in a wooden bowl that might be soup or might be regret. If someone hands you a chunk of organ meat, you take it. You eat it. You do not ask what it was in life. Curiosity is a luxury. You are not a noble. You are not a guest. You are a stomach with legs and a knife. After eating, there is no cleanup. The bones go to the dogs, the ashes to the wind. You wipe your hands on your cloak, which also doubles as a napkin, towel, and winter blanket. Hygiene is still theoretical. Someone belches. This is considered polite. You do it too. Congratulations. You're adapting. There's no announcement. No first snowflake drifting poetically from the sky. One night you're sleeping with your boots off. The next your boots are frozen solid. And so is your will to live. Welcome to winter on the steppe. It doesn't get cold, it becomes cold. A creeping, bone-deep, cruel cold that wraps around your ribs and whispers you were never meant to be here. The wind doesn't howl. It bites. It has teeth and they're sharp and they aim for your ears. Your breath turns to fog. Then to ice. Then to regret. You sleep with your horse now. Not near your horse. With your horse. You press your back against its side like it's a lover made of hay and muscle. You'd say it's awkward, but at least it's warm. Clothing becomes a game of layers. Wool over leather over fur. You stop feeling your fingers by mid-morning. You stop feeling your toes the day after. You try not to think about it. If they come back, great. If not, fewer things to stub. There's no firewood, no forests, just frozen dung. You burn it without question. It smells like betrayal, but it's heat. The smoke curls around your face and makes your eyes water. You blink and your eyelashes freeze together. You are now part sculpture. Your water is ice. Your food is ice. Your nose is bleeding. You ride anyway. Mongols don't stop for weather. If it's not an arrow or a plague, it's not worth mentioning. You ride with snow in your boots and wind in your bones. And nobody cares. Especially not the horses who seem to enjoy it. The cold changes you. It takes your voice, dries your skin, and rewrites your personality to something quieter, stiffer, and much less optimistic. You stop complaining, not out of stoicism, but because your jaw refuses to move. And yet, you keep moving, because if you stop, you'll freeze. And if you freeze, someone will bury you under a cairn of stones and ride off without breaking stride. The Empire doesn't wait for spring. Neither do you. Winter is not a season here, it's a test. Those who pass it earn another year. Those who fail become part of the landscape, small bumps under the snow that will reveal their secrets when the ice melts. But spring does come, eventually, like a rumor that turns out to be true. The ice cracks with sounds like breaking bones. Streams begin to flow again, carrying the winter's dead toward distant seas. Green shoots push through the hard earth, brave and foolish as young warriors. The horses grow restless, sensing change in the wind. And you, somehow, are still alive to see it all. This is survival in its purest form. Not the romantic kind written in songs, but the grinding, daily kind that wears down mountains and builds empires. You have learned that comfort is a luxury, that warmth is earned, and that life is a negotiation with death that you win one day at a time. The steppe has marked you now, branded you with its endless patience and casual cruelty. You are no longer who you were when you first woke beside that horse so many months ago. He doesn't look like a legend. He sits cross-legged on a plain wooden platform, chewing a piece of dried meat with all the ceremony of a bored butcher. His fur-lined coat is weather-beaten. His beard is uneven. His boots have blood on them, though whether it's from battle, a goat, or last week's argument with a tax collector is unclear. This is your Khan, your general, your leader, the man who can order entire cities wiped from the map with a raised eyebrow. You do not speak unless spoken to. You do not make eye contact for too long. You definitely do not correct his pronunciation, even if he calls you that one with the hair for 6 months straight. He speaks softly. Mongol leaders don't shout. If you can't hear him, that's your problem. Listen harder or read his tone or follow the sound of your own heartbeat because it's now louder than his voice. Orders are short, precise, absolute. Ride here. Burn this. Accept tribute. Behead the messenger. Don't return until it's done. You nod. Everyone nods. Even the tough ones. The warriors who once outran a siege fire nod like nervous school children. One man coughs during the briefing. He is now gone. No one mentions him again. Your Khan doesn't care about your feelings. He cares about results. Did the city fall? Did you bring back tribute? Is the caravan moving? Are the horses fed? If the answer to any of these is no, you'd better be holding your severed arm as an excuse. His tent is not lavish, but it holds maps. So many maps, all hand-drawn, all annotated in a script that looks like a falcon learned calligraphy. You understand none of it. He understands all of it. He sees rivers as roads, mountains as slight inconveniences, and kingdoms as small prizes wrapped in bad diplomacy. The hierarchy here is simple. The Khan speaks. Everyone else listens. Below him are the generals, men who've earned their rank by being slightly more ruthless and considerably more lucky than their peers. They wear better coats and have cleaner weapons, but they still smell like horses and their boots still have mud on them. Power doesn't change the fundamental realities of steppe life. Below the generals are the captains, below them the warriors, and below the warriors are the servants and the camp followers and the people who shovel horse dung and dream of promotion. Everyone knows their place. Everyone stays in their place. Ambition is fine, but overreach is fatal. The Khan rewards success and forgets failure exists by ensuring the failures don't exist either. You receive your orders. You leave. You do not ask questions. You do not linger. You saddle your horse and you ride out into the cold again. Because in the Mongol Empire, leadership is not about charisma. It's about survival. And those who question the Khan rarely get the chance to do it twice. The system works because it has to work. There is no alternative except death. And death is not particularly interested in feedback. The Khan's authority extends beyond the immediate camp. His word travels faster than arrows, carried by riders who sleep 3 hours a night and change horses like other people change clothes. A message from the Khan can reach the edges of the empire in weeks, crossing thousands of miles of desert and steppe and mountain. The postal system here makes modern mail look like a lazy afternoon stroll. But authority is more than messages. It's the knowledge that failure has consequences that extend beyond the individual. Your mistakes don't just get you killed, they get your family killed, your tribe scattered, your name erased from memory. Success, on the other hand, brings rewards beyond imagination. Land, gold, slaves, titles, the kind of wealth that transforms nomads into kings. The Khan's tent is the center of the world, at least this world. Petitioners come from across the empire seeking favors, dispensing tribute, reporting victories and defeats. The tent smells of leather and smoke and the particular mustiness of power exercised without restraint. Maps cover every surface, marked with the red ink of conquest and the black ink of planning. You learn to read the Khan's moods from his posture, his tone, the way he holds his knife. When he's pleased, the camp relaxes. When he's angry, people disappear. When he's thinking, everyone holds their breath and waits for the world to change. Because it will change. The Khan's thoughts become reality with a speed that would make gods jealous. This is what empire looks like from the inside. Not marble halls and golden thrones, but felt tents and wooden platforms and the constant awareness that everything depends on one man's decisions. The Khan is not divine, but his authority is absolute. He makes mistakes, but no one mentions them. He ages, but no one acknowledges it. He is human, but in a way that makes humanity seem like a temporary condition. You serve because serving is surviving. You obey because disobedience is extinction. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you begin to understand how a collection of nomadic tribes became the largest empire in human history. It wasn't through superior technology or divine favor. It was through the simple recognition that absolute authority, properly applied, can move mountains and reshape continents. You ride into a foreign land carrying a message. You are not a soldier today. You are an ambassador. This does not mean you are safe. You ride with a small entourage, a flag of truce, and the smug confidence of someone who knows that behind you are thousands of warriors who will happily burn an entire civilization to the ground if your letter is not well received. The letter itself is simple, direct, a few short lines scrolled in Mongolian, Persian, maybe Chinese, depending on the poor soul receiving it. It reads something like submit to us or don't. We'll be back either way. It's sealed with the Khan's mark, a bit of hardened wax that might as well be soaked in gasoline, considering what follows a refusal. You ride into cities with marble gates, golden domes, silk curtains, and nervous guards. You are fed. You are questioned. You are stared at like a hungry wolf that's somehow been invited to dinner. You are polite. You are calm. You explain slowly that submission is in everyone's best interest. Mongol protection comes with benefits. Trade, order, slightly fewer massacres. Refusal comes with fire, arrows, and a thorough removal of anything shaped like a building. Sometimes they say yes. They offer tribute, horses, gold, daughters. You nod, you leave, you report back. That city stays standing for now. Sometimes they hesitate. They whisper behind closed doors. They send you back with vague answers and suspiciously generous gifts. You accept them. You smile. You note everything. And sometimes they kill the messenger. This is unfortunate for them. You are not avenged with a complaint. You are avenged with siege engines, horse archers, psychological warfare, and a creative use of severed heads as decorative warning signs. Diplomacy is fast in the Mongol Empire. One message, one chance, no second letters, no passive-aggressive negotiations. You deliver the will of the Khan. If it's ignored, his reply arrives strapped to the back of 40,000 mounted archers and a few very enthusiastic engineers. You don't argue. You don't negotiate. You deliver. And if the world listens, it lives. The message you carry is not really about submission. It's about survival. The Khan is offering cities a choice, but it's the kind of choice where one option leads to prosperity and the other leads to archaeological significance. The art of Mongol diplomacy is in its honesty. There are no hidden clauses, no fine print, no diplomatic language that means the opposite of what it says. Submit and live. Resist and die. Pay tribute and prosper. Refuse and burn. The clarity is almost refreshing after dealing with civilizations that have spent centuries learning to say nothing with many words. You learn languages on these missions. Not from books or teachers, but from the desperate need to communicate threats accurately. Mispronounce a word and you might accidentally declare war instead of offering peace. Get the tones wrong and your message of submission might become an invitation to dinner. The stakes make you a very motivated student. The cities you visit are marvels of engineering and art. Libraries that contain the wisdom of ages, palaces that took generations to build, gardens that exist purely for beauty. You admire them professionally, the way a demolition expert admires architecture. Everything is temporary. Everything can be rebuilt. Everything burns if you apply enough heat and motivation. But some cities surprise you. They welcome the Mongol message not with fear but with relief. They've been ground down by their own rulers, bled dry by taxes, exhausted by wars they didn't start and couldn't finish. The Khan's offer of protection sounds like salvation to people who've forgotten what security feels like. These places become the empire's greatest successes, thriving under Mongol law, growing rich on Mongol trade. The Mongol postal system that carries your messages is a wonder in itself. Riders stationed every few miles, fresh horses waiting at each stop, a communication network that spans continents. News travels faster than armies, faster than disease, faster than hope. A message sent from the Khan's tent can reach the farthest provinces before the seasons change. You become part of this network, a voice in the conversation between center and periphery, between conquered and conqueror, between what was and what will be. Your reports shape policy, influence decisions, determine the fate of kingdoms. The Khan reads your words and moves armies accordingly. Cities rise or fall based on the accuracy of your observations. This is power of a different kind. Not the power of the sword or the bow, but the power of information, of communication, of being the bridge between worlds. You carry more than messages. You carry the future in your saddlebags, folded neat and sealed with wax, waiting to be delivered to those who will shape it or be shaped by it. The road stretches ahead, endless as the empire itself. More cities to visit, more messages to deliver, more choices to offer to a world that's learning to live under the shadow of the Khan's banner. You ride on, ambassador and witness, carrier of words that reshape the map of the known world, one sealed letter at a time. You've ridden into what passes for a Mongol capital. You are expecting maybe walls, some kind of palace with polished floors and a guy in a hat offering figures. Instead, you find the largest collection of tents you've ever seen, stretching to every horizon, organized with military precision but feeling as temporary as morning mist. This is Karakoram, the heart of the greatest empire in history, and it can be packed up and moved in 3 days. The air here tastes different. It tastes like money. Not the clean metallic taste of silver coins, but the complex flavor of wealth in motion. Silk from China mingles with spices from India, furs from Russia brush against cotton from Persia. The Silk Road doesn't just pass through the Mongol Empire, it is the Mongol Empire, a network of trade routes protected by Mongol law and lubricated with Mongol blood. You dismount near what might be called a marketplace if marketplaces could be the size of small cities. Merchants from every corner of the known world have set up shop here, their goods displayed on carpets and in baskets and hanging from poles like colorful prayer flags. A Chinese silk trader argues price with a Venetian merchant while a Persian jeweler examines Indian pearls with the intensity of a surgeon. The languages blend into a polyglot symphony. Arabic mingles with Mongolian, Chinese tones rise and fall against Persian rhythms, Russian consonants clash with Turkish vowels. But somehow everyone understands everyone. Commerce is the universal tongue, and profit translates perfectly into any language. Gold speaks fluent Mandarin, silk whispers sweet Persian, and spices shout in every dialect from here to the Mediterranean. A Mongol guard walks past, and the chatter dies momentarily. Not from fear, but from respect. These trade routes exist because the Mongols will kill anyone who interferes with them. Bandits who prey on caravans don't get captured and tried, they get impaled as warning signs. Pirates who attack Mongol-protected ships become fish food so quickly their crews don't have time to lower the lifeboats. The Pax Mongolica, they call it in the universities that are just beginning to study this phenomenon. Mongol peace. The peace of the sword, the peace that comes from knowing that trade route security is backed by the largest army in human history. A merchant can travel from Venice to Beijing carrying a fortune in goods, and the only thing he needs to worry about is his profit margin. You watch a caravan preparing to depart for the west. Camels loaded with porcelain and tea, horses carrying silk and jade, men wearing the confident expressions of people who know their cargo will arrive safely because it bears the Khan's seal. That seal is worth more than any army escort, more valuable than any fortress wall. It represents the promise that interference with commerce is interference with the empire, and the empire does not forgive. The wealth flowing through this temporary capital is staggering. Not just goods, but knowledge. Islamic mathematics meets Chinese engineering. European metallurgy learns from Indian chemistry. The Mongols don't just conquer territories, they connect civilizations. Ideas travel the trade routes alongside spices, technologies spread with textiles, philosophies migrate with merchants. You enter what might be called the treasury, if treasuries were usually collections of felt-lined pits dug into the ground. The wealth of nations lies here in organized piles. Chinese gold stacked next to European silver. Indian gems sorted by color and clarity. Persian carpets rolled and tagged like scrolls in a library. The Khan's tax collectors have been busy. But this isn't just plunder. This is tribute, the price of participation in the Mongol trade network. Cities pay not just for protection, but for access. Access to markets they never dreamed of, customers they never imagined, goods they never knew existed. The tribute they pay comes back to them tenfold through increased commerce. A Chinese administrator explains the system to you in careful, measured tones. Every caravan documented, every merchant registered, every transaction recorded on silk paper with brushes that cost more than most people's horses. The Mongols may be nomads, but they understand bureaucracy when it serves their purposes. They've learned that keeping records is almost as important as keeping swords sharp. The trade routes stretch in every direction from here, arteries of commerce that pump wealth through the body of the empire. North to Russia, where furs and amber wait to be exchanged for southern luxuries. East to China, where silk and porcelain flow westward in return for gold and silver. South to India, where spices and gems travel ancient paths now guarded by Mongol swords. And west to Europe, where a merchant class is just beginning to understand what's possible when trade routes are secure and borders are merely administrative inconveniences. Venetian merchants grow rich on goods that travel safely across half the world. European tables gain access to spices that make their crude cuisine barely edible. You realize you're witnessing the birth of globalization, the first time in history when goods and ideas can flow freely across such vast distances. The Mongols haven't just conquered the world, they've connected it. They've turned the entire continent into a single market, a unified economic zone protected by a military force that makes resistance not just futile but economically irrational. This is empire not as conquest but as organization, not as destruction but as construction. The Mongols have built something new under the sun, a system where profit and peace support each other, where trade makes war unnecessary and prosperity makes submission desirable. The sun sets over Karakoram, painting the sky the color of silk and gold, and you understand that you've seen the future of human civilization. The siege engines arrive at dawn, rolling across the steppe like mechanical thunderstorms. You've never seen anything quite like them. Chinese engineering married to Mongol ruthlessness, producing offspring that would make their ancestors weep with pride or terror, depending on which side of the walls they're standing on. The city ahead has chosen unwisely. They received the Khan's message, considered the terms, and decided that their walls were stronger than Mongol patience. They were wrong. Mongol patience ran out approximately 30 seconds after the messenger was sent back with a severed ear and a rude suggestion about where the Khan could place his tribute demands. Now the messenger's ear will be avenged with interest compounded daily until the city's debt is paid in full. The price of insulting the Khan starts at complete destruction and escalates from there. The siege engines are worked by engineers who were recently the city's neighbors. Chinese technicians who understand exactly how their countrymen build walls, and more importantly, how those walls can be brought down. The Mongols don't just conquer armies, they recruit expertise. Every conquered territory provides not just tribute but knowledge, not just wealth but wisdom about how to conquer the next territory more efficiently. You watch the preparations with professional interest. This is siege warfare raised to an art form. No random battering at walls, no hopeful climbing of ladders into a storm of arrows. This is engineering applied to destruction, mathematics in service of mayhem, physics deployed for political purposes. The city's walls were built to withstand conventional attacks. These are not conventional attacks. The counterweight trebuchets begin their work first, hurling stones the size of horses into the city's gates. Each impact sounds like thunder deciding to get personal with the architecture. The walls shake, dust falls like snow, and defenders begin to understand that their ancestors' engineering may not be sufficient for their current predicament. But the Mongols don't rely solely on brute force. Psychological warfare is cheaper than stone ammunition and often more effective. Captured defenders from previous conquests are tied to the fronts of siege engines, forced to watch their former comrades face the same choice they once faced badly. The message is clear: resistance is temporary, but cooperation has a future. The city's water supply, so carefully protected behind those impressive walls, becomes irrelevant when Mongol engineers divert the river that feeds it. The citizens can choose between dying of thirst behind their walls or dying of arrows outside them. It's not much of a choice, but the Mongols are nothing if not generous with options, even if all the options lead to the same conclusion. Smoke rises from within the city as buildings catch fire from the incendiary arrows that fall like burning rain. The defenders shoot back, of course, but their arrows have to arc high over their own walls, and by the time they land, the Mongol forces have moved. Fighting nomads from behind fixed fortifications is like trying to cage the wind with stone and mortar. The psychological pressure builds with mathematical precision. Food runs short. Water becomes precious. Sleep becomes impossible under the constant bombardment. The city's leaders begin to have quiet conversations about acceptable losses, about the difference between honor and stupidity, about whether their citizens signed up to die for their pride. On the third day, a white flag appears on the walls. The bombardment stops with surprising suddenness, like a thunderstorm that decides it has made its point. Mongol negotiators approach under their own flag of truce, men who understand that conquest is more profitable than destruction, that tribute pairs are more valuable than corpses. The terms are surprisingly moderate. The city will pay tribute, provide hostages to ensure good behavior, and submit to Mongol law. In exchange, the walls will not be torn down, the population will not be slaughtered, and commerce will be permitted to resume under Mongol protection. It's the same deal offered to every city, the same choice between cooperation and archaeology. But some cities choose differently. Some cities decide that death is preferable to submission, that honor matters more than survival, that their gods demand resistance regardless of the consequences. These cities discover that the Mongols are perfectly willing to accommodate their preferences. If they want to die for their principles, the Mongols are happy to help them achieve their goals. The siege engines resume their work with renewed enthusiasm. The walls come down in sections, like a puzzle being disassembled by giants with poor impulse control. The defenders fight street by street, house by house, room by room. They fight bravely, fiercely, pointlessly. Courage is admirable, but it's not bulletproof against arrows, and arrows don't care about moral superiority. When the city finally falls, as it always falls, the Mongol treatment is thorough and educational. The leaders who chose resistance are executed in ways designed to discourage similar decisions in neighboring cities. The population is sorted like grain, with useful artisans and craftsmen separated from those whose only skill is dying heroically for lost causes. The city's knowledge is catalogued and preserved. Its technologies are studied and improved. Its trade contacts are absorbed into the Mongol network. Even in destruction, the city contributes to the empire's growth. Nothing is wasted except the lives of those who chose to waste them on futile resistance. The Mongols are practical even in their cruelty. Some cities learn from these examples. Word spreads along trade routes about what happens to cities that choose poorly, and more frequently, about what happens to cities that choose wisely. Prosperity is possible under Mongol rule. Peace is available to those who pay for it. Protection is guaranteed to those who submit to it. The empire grows not just through conquest but through intelligent surrender. You ride away from the ruins of another city that bet against the inevitable and lost. Behind you, Mongol administrators are already planning the rebuilding, the integration, the transformation of another conquered territory into another productive province. The empire digests its conquests quickly and efficiently, turning enemies into tributaries, resistance into resources, defiance into docility. This is how empires are built in the real world, not through grand gestures and stirring speeches, but through the patient application of overwhelming force to reasonable demands. Submit and prosper. Resist and perish. The choice is always offered, the consequences are always clear, and the results are always inevitable. The Mongol Empire grows one reasonable choice at a time. The Khan is dying. No one says this out loud, of course. Saying the Khan is dying is a good way to die yourself, quickly and in creative ways that demonstrate why saying such things is discouraged. But everyone knows. The way he sits now, the way his voice has changed, the way his orders come less frequently and with less precision. The great machine of empire continues to function, but its operator is wearing down. You stand in the command tent for what might be the last time, watching the master of the world study maps of territories he will never see conquered, plans for campaigns he will never lead, dreams of expansion that will outlive the dreamer. The succession is already being prepared in whispers and coded messages, in careful alliances and cautious preparations for a transition of power that must appear seamless even as the earth shifts beneath everyone's feet. The empire is larger now than when you first woke up beside that horse beside the Onon River. Larger than any empire before it, larger than any empire that will come after it, at least until humans learn to conquer planets instead of merely continents. From Korea to Poland, from Siberia to India, the Khan's word is law and his law is order, and his order has brought peace to more of the earth than any single human being before or since. But empires are not immortal, even if their founders sometimes seem to be. The Mongol Empire is already beginning its transformation into something different, something more settled, more civilized, more concerned with administration than with conquest. The grandsons of nomadic warriors are learning to read and write, to build palaces instead of sleeping in tents, to collect taxes instead of tribute. The great trade routes continue to flow with goods and gold, but now they're managed by bureaucrats instead of warriors, protected by law instead of fear, maintained by habit instead of conquest. The Pax Mongolica has become institutionalized, transformed from personal rule into systematic government, from the will of one man into the structure of civilization itself. You think about the cities you've seen surrender and the cities you've seen burn. The ones that chose wisely prosper now under Mongol law, their merchants rich from protected trade, their artisans valued for their skills, their people secure in ways their ancestors never imagined possible. The ones that chose poorly exist now only in the memories of survivors and the records of historians. The technologies conquered territories provided have been integrated into a system more advanced than anything the world has seen. Chinese engineering serves Mongol purposes. Islamic mathematics calculates Mongol logistics. European metallurgy forges Mongol weapons. Persian astronomy navigates Mongol expeditions. The empire has become a synthesis of human knowledge, a library written in blood and preserved in victory. Communication systems that once carried threats now carry trade agreements. Postal routes that once delivered ultimatums now deliver contracts. The infrastructure of conquest has become the foundation of commerce, the machinery of war transformed into the mechanisms of peace. The Mongol Empire has evolved from a military organization into a civilization. But you also see the signs of coming change. The younger generation of Mongol nobles speaks Persian better than Mongolian, prefers silk to wool, builds in stone instead of felt. They still remember their heritage, still honor their ancestors, but they're becoming something their ancestors wouldn't recognize. Nomads learning to farm, warriors learning to govern, destroyers learning to create. The horse that was your bedmate and companion through all these seasons stands beside you now, older and more scarred but still breathing heavily on your neck when you're trying to sleep. He's outlasted several wars, numerous battles, countless migrations, and at least 3 different empires counting the ones that existed before the Mongols absorbed them. His indifference to historical significance remains undiminished. You've learned languages you never knew existed, eaten foods that challenged your definition of edible, survived winters that redefined your relationship with cold, fought battles that proved courage is no substitute for superior tactics, and delivered messages that changed the course of history. You've been part of something unprecedented in human experience. The legacy will outlast the legions. Long after the last Mongol horse has been stabbed in some forgotten battle, the trade routes will continue to connect east and west. Long after the last Khan has died in some distant palace, the precedent of unified continental government will inspire future empire builders. Long after the last tribal warrior has learned to read, the principle that security enables prosperity will guide the policies of nations yet to be born. The Mongol Empire has taught the world that barriers are temporary, that distance is negotiable, that differences between peoples are less important than their need for security and prosperity. It has demonstrated that empires can be built on inclusion as well as exclusion, that conquest can lead to creation as well as destruction, that nomads can teach settled peoples about the value of movement and change. The sun sets one more time over the endless steppe, painting the grass the color of old gold and old blood. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnies, probably complaining about the weather or the food or the general unfairness of being a horse in an empire built by people who spend more time riding than walking. The sound carries across the empty land like an echo of all the sounds that built this empire, all the voices that spoke its orders, all the hoofbeats that carried its messages to the edges of the known world. You dismount for the last time, unsaddle your horse, and prepare for sleep beside the animal that has been your companion through the rise of the greatest empire in human history. Tomorrow there will be new orders, new territories, new challenges to face. But tonight, there is only the steppe and the stars and the quiet satisfaction of having survived long enough to see how the story ends. Or at least how this chapter of the story ends, because empires may fall but the steppe endures, and somewhere out there, another orphan is learning to ride, preparing to change the world or be changed by it. The Mongol Empire sleeps now, but its dreams will shape continents for centuries to come. Rest well, riders of the steppe. Your work here is done, but your legacy has only just begun.